I nā reo karanga a tēnei te mihi atu ki a tātou, kua rau e ke mai nei kararo te tuini o tēnei kaupapa whakaherehere ki a tātou, ara ko te oranga, o te whānau. Nō reira e rauranga tirama tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Glenn Mackay and I'm one of the manuhuia, one of the relationship managers with Amotai, based in Tāmaki. I'm going to be our host for this morning, so my honour and privilege. As a way of introduction, what I want us to be able to do is just start with karakia, chance for us all to stop and take a breath and to pay homage, I suppose. Following on from that, I'm going to open with a brief mihi. I want to take the opportunity to be able to acknowledge all of those who have passed on, acknowledge ngā iwi across the motu, and then I want to be able to acknowledge our Pacific brothers and sisters, and then I want to bring it back to us and this very important kaupapa that we have here today, which is about building our collateral with our kai kōrero, Eddie Te Paa. So without any further ado, whānau, I'll ask us all just to bow our heads as I open up with karakia. Ki noi tātai. He honore, he korore ki tatua, he mauna rongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Āmene. Ai nā iwi e whakarongo mai nei ki tēnei o nā hui huina. Kai nā maunga tū teitei, kai nā wai whakatere taniwha, koutou nā korokoro tūi, nā korokoro reo rōreka a tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kia koutou rā e nā whanaunga, nā tuakana o te moana nui ākiwa, nei rā te kupu whakamihi kia koutou rā. Talofa lava, malole lei, nisa bula vanaka, namaste, kia ora ana, whakalofa lahi atu, malo ni, whakatalofa atu. Nei rā te reo karanga, nei rā te reo mihi o Amotai kia koutou rā. He roti e rā ona whakaaro rangatira, ku huri o ku whakaaro ki a rātou mā, nā mate huhua o te motu nei. Koutou kua whetūrangi tia. Koutou haere e rungi te rāra whānui a tāne. Haere, haere, haere atu rā. Rā ko hoki atu au kia tātou, te hunga uroa, te urupā o rātou mā. Nei rā te mihi kia koutou rā. Nau mai, hara mai, whakatau mai ki tēnei kaupapa, building collateral with Eddie I tātanei, tēnā koutou, kia tau, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, I rungi a tātou. So whānau, first and foremost, again, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to have karakia with me and to acknowledge those who have passed on and indeed our connections across the moana nui ākiwa. Today is our second workshop, if you will, in this online series of events. And today's one is Building Collateral with Eddie. I want to make sure at the outset, though, like in terms of some of our housekeeping rules, just to make sure we keep the conversation flowing. I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable that this is a safe environment for us to be able to ask questions that we need to ask. Eddie will obviously be presenting shortly, and he's quite open to us being able to ask questions either by raising your hand at the bottom of your taskbar in the Teams functions, raise your hand up, or you can ask a question inside of the chat. We may not get to all of the questions depending on how we are for time. So what I would encourage you to do, if you don't get your question answered through this series, that you could send us an email at kiora@amotai.nz and we'll endeavour to get back to you that way. Yeah, so again, whānau, just want to make sure that we are conducting ourselves in a fashion where we whakanui each other, acknowledge each other's space, and acknowledge the opportunity for all of us to grow and learn alongside of each other. So feel free to ensure that you're asking the questions that you need to answer that'll help you in your business. Without any further ado, whānau, it's my honour and privilege to be able to introduce you all to my mate, our kai kōrero for this morning, most of you will know Eddie already. And if you do, you know he comes with 30 years of experience largely in the telecommunications and construction industries. And Eddie is hugely passionate about supporting all of our Amotai businesses. Oh, actually, all of our businesses, whether you're registered with Amotai or not. Eddie has a huge passion for supporting Māori development and Pacifica development. Nō reire e taku tuakana e te manuhuia e Eddie. Nā te porai, nā te whātua, te ati haunui a pāpārangi, nei rā te mihi o te whānau ki a koe. Nō reire Eddie, nei mahara mai whakatau mai rā, kai a koe te rākau. Handing the time to you, Eddie.
Kia ora, Glenn, thank you for a beautiful introduction. And thank you for everyone taking the time to have a kōrero and have a listen to what I'm going to talk about regarding building your collateral. This is my first go at it, so I'm sure I'm going to stuff up, and I really do welcome. I would rather be talking to you and trying to answer these questions rather than trying to work off a script, because I don't want to do that. I really want to listen to your questions and hopefully be able to answer them as we're talking, and also hopefully the answers that you may require may come out of my kōrero, keeping in mind that we've only got an hour, so hopefully I can be as productive as I can throughout this presentation. I will just quickly share my screen. Screen toru. Okay, we should be seeing my screen now. Can we get a thumbs up from somebody? Yes, fantastic. Okay. Okay, look, we're going to talk about building your collateral. So for us or any business, you know, building your collateral is can take a long while, and it's about, you know, demonstrating your achievements of what you've achieved to date, starting off in small projects, starting off with quoting, and then obviously moving forward towards tendering and larger opportunities. So what we want to talk about today is the fundamentals of tendering, and today we're going to touch on the customer, the opportunity, and what your winning approach is for any tender that you're going for. You know, you've got to be strategic in who you're targeting and why you're targeting the customer, and it's very important that you know the customer inside out, the introduction of that customer, the background of the customer, including their revenue, their size, the key areas of concern or sensitivities, and any historical information that you may have acquired, or, you know, either through working with them in existing relationships. Because a lot of our activity and achievements is really demonstrated by the relationships that you build. And whether a project is going sour, what will stick to the mind is how you've managed that relationship throughout the, I guess, the duration of that project. More importantly, it's understanding what the customer requirements are. I mean, you all know what the scope of works will be, but really understanding what they want to achieve for the government agency, for the community, what are the, I guess, the project charters and real objectives that they want to meet, and try and compare them against what you already deliver. I mean, budget is always going to be a focal point, and sometimes you can keep an eye on what their evaluation criteria is. And look, it's a given that budget is always going to be a high regard in there, but it's really important, again, is about with your collateral and your relationships that you've built and how you've executed contracts in the past. Hopefully they can, it really focuses on who you are as a business and how you've executed the contract, and the, you know, submitting the timeline and the relevant org chart and roles and responsibilities of the people they're going to execute their contract. And then they'll realize that, you know, perhaps, you know what you're doing, you can achieve the outcomes of what they want, of what they're asking for, and the price is something that, you know, we can probably work on when we get to the table. Because the first part of tendering is actually putting forward your submission with the hope that you're going to get to the, you know, get shortlisted and be able to really present who you are. Because when we are presenting our collateral, it's really good to put that all in writing, but you've now got to talk it in front of them. And a lot of the times is that it's don't tell me, show me. Customer stakeholders, who are the stakeholders that are involved with the project? Other government organisations, council organisations, iwi. Have you already established relationships with their stakeholders and proving that you have history with that, or you're trying to develop a history with those stakeholders? Because you'll be very surprised, not surprised, but the amount of, I guess, say that these stakeholders may have, especially iwi, and being a local organisation tendering for a local project that will go in high favour for a local business. So it's very important that you develop your relationship with their stakeholders and try and come up with some teaming approaches with these organisations. So at the end of the day, I think that's what's going to get you over the line with those relationships with your stakeholders. Now, the opportunity, right? For us as a business, we've got to create our own little checklists of the opportunities that we want to go for. Once again, we've already identified who our customers are, and we can set it up in gets for the relevant projects that customer or that government organisation is going to be pushing out, and setting up your profile so you get the right alerts that you want, and you can make those decisions a lot quicker. So with the opportunity, you've got to look at what the overview of that opportunity is, the project scope, the scope deliverables, etc. And more importantly, the commercial aspects of how you're going to execute that contract. And if that aligns with your checklist, that gives you the warm and fuzzy feeling that, yes, we can proceed further, and you want to click the button to actually receive the documentation and do a lot more of a thorough review, or a big no bid. The strategic context, for example, what is this project relative to the business? How does it align with your scope of work, with your capability and capacity to be able to undertake that project? Those are the key factors that you want to be able to make that assessment quite quickly, because you want to spend as much time as you can being able to really read that documentation and really absorb what the client is after. And more importantly, a lot of our whānau, from what I've seen, tend to go straight to the scope of work, because that's really what they know, and they spend a lot of time on focusing on the scope of work, but not understanding really how does the client want you to execute their contract, and how are you going to execute it? Not when you get tick the box and you get awarded the contract. You want to be able to demonstrate that during the tender stage. So part of your submission is actually showing how you're going to mobilise, right from tender phase, right to mobilisation, right to site setup, and so on and so forth. That's going to demonstrate your capability, that you've actually thought about all the documentation that they've put in place, their timelines, the material requirements that you need to do to execute the material and procure the material in line with the timeline to construct. So it's very important that when you're reviewing that opportunity, that you can align that with your current systems and processes. And more importantly, it's the customs documents. And sometimes we'll look at the main request for tender and think that's all you've got to look at, and there may be something hidden in those documents that could be a furphy, that could really that could set you off track, or you'll overlook it. So it's very important that this opportunity stage, and it needs to be robust, it needs to be using a checklist, and you need to follow that checklist so you've got every box ticked. And if there is a gap, we look at that gap and look at how you can overcome that or mitigate any shortfalls that you may have in that opportunity. So an example with that would be, it's a high-end summary of an opportunity. So you've got the summary of the opportunity. What does it do in line with your business? What's the contract information and the timelines? And what are the evaluation criteria? I mean, this is just the top part of the checklist, but you've got to have these checklists in place so you can make an informed decision as a business in collaboration with the rest of your team where you are confident that you can meet that criteria. But more importantly, beyond just the opportunity, is setting up an action plan on how you're going to deliver the schedules that they're asking for and who is going to be responsible for them. Now, I know that as we're starting off in business, we tend to do, excuse me, Fana, we tend to look at all the juicy stuff. And the juicy stuff is the actual scope of work. And what we have to do is really identify what they're after and assign those responsibilities to the subject matter expert or the I guess the jack of all trades within your business. They can answer those questions, because really the people that are experienced on some of the finer schedules, such as the pricing, that's where you need your time. So we need to be able to allocate the tasks and the schedules to the appropriate people that can, complete that in a fast time, I guess. In saying that, the non-pricing documentation or the submission can be done, if you've got your collateral set up, you should be able to do that in the first couple of days, because what you want to be able to do is focus on the scope of work, the timeline, the work breakdown structure, and how you're going to execute the scope of work. And that is 80% of your effort that you need to expend on a tender.
Eddie.
Yes.
Sorry, brother, I've just got a question coming from the whānau here.
Oh, awesome.
Around opportunity, and what is Amotai's role? So the question reads, is Amotai a direct vessel for introduction to business and opportunity, and how does this process work? So what's Amotai's role, if I can kind of reframe it, bro, what's Amotai's role in terms of connecting our businesses with the opportunities that we see coming through either government contracts and tenders or through our tier one type of buyers, our primaries?
Okay, well, look, our role is, we spend a lot of time with our buyers and looking at the pipeline of opportunity coming forward. We also provide them with details of credible organisations that can undertake the scope of work, within those regions. But more importantly, we also have our regional managers who have an intimate knowledge of their supplier registrations, and connect with them, making sure that before they present them to our buyers or these other opportunities or the tier one organisations, that they'll meet the criteria. And what we want to try and do is try and get them pre-qualified with a lot of these tier one organisations. Now, any more questions regarding that?
I suppose, Eddie, if you can just cover off on the process. So if we have, and I think there's, let's cover off on the process, might be helpful. So if we see a tender coming through from government, how do Amotai respond on behalf of our suppliers that we have in the room today?
Okay, thank you. So what we do is we do set our own profile up based on our audience within the regions, and we get the same notifications as you do on GETS. But more importantly, what we do try to do is speak to our government organisations and looking at the pipeline a lot more in advance. So what we want to do then is go, okay, well, we know about this project's going to be coming out in 4 or 5 months' time. We use that intel so we can speak to our suppliers within those regions and gauge their level of interest or their appetite to participate in that. Also, if it is going to be going through a tier one organisation, we connect them a lot earlier with those buyers so they can get them through that pre-qualification process and obviously learn about each other and develop that relationship at an earlier stage, because that's going to be important as part of one of the tender requirements is how are you engaging with Māori businesses within the regions, and what have you done so far? Not just we've signed up with Amotai and that's the first tick. Yes, we've signed up with Amotai. We engage with Amotai, on a regular basis to learn about their suppliers. We are engaging with their suppliers and we're shortlisting. So those are the things that we as our RMs within those regions need to get those connections happening.
So just to wrap this piece up, bro, would it be fair to say that whether, regardless if we're dealing with government directly and government entities, let's say kāinga ora and the like, or with our primary buyers, if they come to us, essentially they'll say, we've got this scope of work, we're looking for, let's just say, contractors to deliver that, or suppliers to deliver this scope of work. Amotai's role essentially is to work through our database, see where our businesses are currently positioned in terms of meeting the pre-qualifications of either that business, the pre-qualifications of the tier 1, and then put our business names forward to them, and then it's up to the buyer essentially to do their due diligence, right? That'd be fair.
Yeah, and that's all about going through the buyer's pre-qualifications. Now, ideally, we want to have that completed well and truly before these opportunities come up. So then all you need to focus on would be your pricing and your execution of the scope of work as a supplier to a direct contractor.
I've got a follow-up question, and it's around in similar vein. So one of the businesses asking, would we expect to see an introduction or a direct lead to connect to some of these opportunities with the ability to provide a price at that stage?
That would be really nice in the perfect world, and that's something where we'd like to get to a lot sooner than later. In saying that, if we are approached by a buyer and you're asking for pricing, it's too late. Excuse me. It's probably too late. We need to act on it a lot earlier, and hopefully get those introductions and get you engaged with the buying organisation to be able to set some benchmark pricing and submit some pricing based on other projects that they may have on board. Does that answer that question? And as you build the relationship, ideally you're going to be doing other projects before the large opportunities come on board. So it's a bit of a try before you buy, and building that relationship, demonstrating your capability well and truly before the more complex opportunities become available. Again, it's about knowing what the pipeline is 6-12 months down the track, getting you introduced, getting you pre-qualified, and hopefully getting you to do some other scope of work in the meantime to demonstrate your capability.
What I want to, let's take the opportunity then, because I appreciate we've got a number of businesses in the room. So I just want to maybe throw it open to anybody who might want to share any experiences that they've had in this space. Nathan, my man, nei rā ka mihi ana ki a koe e tū kane e Nathan. Kai a koe, my brother. Nice to see you this morning, and if you don't mind sharing, bro, would be awesome. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, Nathan Te Paa takuingo. I just thought I'd add on to what Eddie said. So first of all, huge mihi to Amotai and to be involved in this space. I just want to go back, so about a year ago, could be more, introductions went out for my business to have an opportunity within the space for kāinga ora. They opened the doors, which was amazing. I'll just go long and then I'll step back. So basically, as of today, we are a build partner to kāinga ora, and we're also a development partner for kāinga ora. If it wasn't for Amotai to open the doors, we wouldn't be where we are today. So huge mihi to Ariana and the team. So when I step back, and I think Eddie's hitting it on the head really well, Amotai is a business. Well, Amotai needs to understand all our Māori businesses' capabilities. So for example, if a fencing contractor, Māori contractor, wants to win contracts with kāinga ora, they need to understand your capabilities so that we're setting you up for success, basically not throwing you under the bus. I've just made some notes here. I think going back to the customer, so making sure you have a relationship with someone. It doesn't need to be kāinga ora, it could be anyone. Capabilities is really huge, and Eddie will always talk about that, because unless you're really good at what you do in your mahi, then you are fine to go to the next stage. Also, budgeting, tendering, and delivery of that scope. I think that's pretty important, especially for us as Māori. You know, sorry to sound harsh, but a lot of people are trying to wait for us to fail, which I hate, but never mind, that just makes us better in what we do. Also the opportunities, so definitely planning on delivery and procurement, that is huge. But I just want to go back and in terms of adding to what Eddie's talked about. So as a business for us and being given the opportunity to deal directly for kāinga order, it was a process. And so I'm going back to when Anna Jane was a part of it, Alex Hardware, they had to make sure that my business was set up so that if they introduced me to kāinga order influences in terms of giving the contracts, they knew that I was set up for success. Now, so everyone that's on this hui is Amotai will first make sure you have the capabilities, and then when you have the capabilities and you can stand there confidently saying you can deliver, I see no issue with Ariana and Eddie and so forth introducing you to these government agencies for you to successfully carry out your contract works if you end up getting some from K. So I just thought I'd add that. So kia ora.
Kia ora, Nathan. Mihi ana ki a koe, my bro. E whakatauira mai tēnei ki te whānau. So Nathan, just acknowledging the work that you've done, bro, and you know, providing an example of how I think, or not how I think, how I know Amotai and you, Iconic, have worked together to solidify this space. Ultimately, bro, as you've said, I think Amotai have opened the door, but you've walked through it on the back end of your own capability, capacity, pricing, all of those sorts of things still play a really relevant role, right? And so your success, bro, is for all of us to be celebrated. Nei raka mihi. Eddie, I'll come back to you, bro, on the last point around your winning approach.
Thank you. Thank you so much again, Nathan. And look, it doesn't happen overnight. And as Nathan said, until you can stand on your own 2 feet, we're there on the journey with you. And for those that have worked with me, they and with the rest of our team, as you can see the dedication that we have, because your success is our success. And again, now that we're moving on to your winning approach, and this is really what it's all about, is what are the critical factors of your proposal of success? Why should they choose you? The other thing with this, though, is that your winning approach doesn't start at tendering. It starts dealing with the smaller developers and starting with a $100,000 job or even less, and building up your capability. Because what you present, no matter what size of the project it is, the effort should be the same. What you deliver, what your proposal is, the detail of that proposal, the timeline, milestones and all that should be the same. Right. Now that sounds hard, but if you've got your systems and processes in place, it's business as usual. Again, it's about your capability. If you can't answer the questions, how are you going to be able to execute a plan or put a plan in place to be able to undertake a scope of work? So those are your critical factors for your success. Is the fundamental to winning the support contract is to understand the customer's drivers and try and comply with the RFT requirements. Any other factors, probably, although not as critical, but the following requirements are important to success of the tender. What you should also cover, the value add, your key people that are going to execute that contract and how they're going to do that with that scope of work. Your key attributes to delivering it, showing that, spending a lot of that time reading the documentation and dot pointing, okay, how am I going to cover this off? How am I going to cover that off? Create a management plan on how you're going to execute that contract. You should always have a plan on executing a contract. Now that could be a 1-pager or that could be a 50-pager. But as you develop your capabilities and your skills and your systems and processes and you document them, right, you're already doing them, right? But we've now got to put that on paper. We've now got to show that this is how we manage our risks. This is how we manage our timeline. This is how we manage our communication to the client. All right, you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel once you have a plan in place. or your draft management plans. It's just customizing that management plan to this opportunity. Your scope of work doesn't change. Nothing changes about how you execute it in the field, right? What you've got to demonstrate is what are you doing before the contract starts, how you're winning the contract, how you're mobilizing, how you're procuring, how you're employing, how you're recruiting, how you're training. Right? Those are the things that they want to know. And until you can put your own plan in place to how you're going to run your business and how you're going to execute scope of work, this is the questions that they're asking you. So a lot of these questions may look quite curly, but really it's just asking, how do you do your business? How do you manage risk? How do you plan? What's your contingency if this may happen? What do you foresee as a risk that could impede the delivery time of this project? And what's your mitigation process? So those are the things that they want to know about, even though in the questions it might just be one little sentence, but you've got to perhaps inundate them with information, but not only inundate them with that information, make it easy for them to find as well. So giving them a guideline and giving them the paragraph of what you're answering the question in high level, and then referencing documentation or appendices that you've given, and even referencing the chapter and the paragraph number of where they can find more detail about how you're going to manage different risks, for example.
Ka pai, Eddie, can I interrupt you, my bro?
Yes,
I've got
please.
a question coming from Christy Compton, who's got her hand up. Morena to you, Christy. Fire away.
Morena, team. How are you? I've been an electrical business in Dunedin, and I was jumping on that as I last year managed to get on the panel for the Southern District Health Board. And so predominantly we've done lots of quotes and tendering in terms, and you're right, we looked straight at the scope, and that's kind of where that midline stuff that we did. And I did really want to just say, in terms of the paperwork involved is really telling your story. It was such a different approach to what we had. And I think it was, I didn't want to be sexist at all, but it really helped that, women are more wordy. So my husband initially almost cried looking at the paperwork that was involved in the actual panel itself. But it really was exactly what you said. It was, who are you? How can you do this? Who are your key staff? Tell me about this. And it was such a weird way of doing it for us initially, because we were always, the bottom line is price, isn't it? And so I just wanted to jump on that and say, yes, that is exactly. And the form itself for that particular thing, health and safety, we'd had to meet that tier anyway. And so we'd already done the site-wise process and done that. So it was more about that capability of you and your business and your key staff and you to be able to do that work. So yeah, once you've kind of gone through that first one, it was pretty hard work, and I was very excited that when we did manage to get on that panel. But it was, I think, once you've done it once, it's not very scary, and you just follow that process. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Morena, Christy, thank you for that feedback. And the other thing with your clients is that you have your own little systems or checklists in place, but also develop one specifically for that customer, because they all want the same thing, but they ask for it in a different format sometimes. So you may need to tweak up your checklist to suit them. And more importantly, you may have different iterations of some of this documentation, especially when it comes to the pricing, to be able to suit it for that client in the way that they want it. Remembering with the pricing, and which we'll talk about more about tomorrow, don't be flash on it. The flash is done behind the scenes, all right? What you want to be able to do is to be able to give them the pricing in the format that they want, and you can put all your iterations or clarifications with it, but keep it simple for them to understand the pricing. We all know that the beef behind the pricing is what they don't see and what they should understand, but that's something that you can talk to when you get to the table about pricing. So thank you again for that. And it is very scary the first time, and daunting. And I I have worked with a few of our whānau and put their submissions together, and I've said, look, at worst case, you know, we're going to develop a library for you. All right. At worst case, you may get onto the panel. At worst case, you may be asked to submit for other opportunities, because the daunting part is building that library. And we will talk about that a bit further down, about your library, because this is where you click and drag information. When they ask a specific question about, give us details of 2 or 3 projects that you've done of similar nature, similar size, similar dollar value, you know, give us those details. You know, so each project that you complete, do a little profile on that project. Now, what was the scope of work? What was the duration? What were the, you know, the key milestones achieved on that project? What was the dollar value? So it's demonstrating your capability. You know, you can put down, you know, project A, B, C, and D, but give them the detail that, you know, that they don't think they need. But that's what's going to get them over the line versus one submission to another and go, oh, wow, they worked on their project, and look at the milestones. And if you are going to submit, you know, 2 or 3 projects as an example, which they'll ask for, when you get down to the next questions, when they ask for your SSSP, use the documentation that you've submitted at the very beginning. So you're keeping it consistent. So you've got, this is the example project, and then further down when it comes to the health and safety qualifications, please provide, you know, your SSSP, your project management plan, or your health and safety management plan. Provide that, and provide, you know, an example of the daily documentation that's being completed for that project. So that gives them history that, yes, here's a project, and this is what we did and what we achieved in this project, and this is how we're answering your questions for that project. And by all means, ask us for any other project you want, because it's the same. As you're building up your credibility and your capability in the field, right, in line with your project management plan, it gets easier and easier.
Eddie.
One other thing, and let's talk about project management plans. It's no good doing the plan and it's locked up in the cupboard, okay? Make sure that everybody knows what's in that plan. The roles and responsibilities of each person, knows what that person's role is, what the communication things are. The guys in the field actually executing the work, you know, make sure that they're actually inducted into the project and understanding the risks of that project and what their roles are. Work safe, do a quality job, okay? Give me the reporting, give me the data documentation. The work execution itself is the easiest part. And it really disappoints me as a construction manager, as a project manager, as a business owner, is the people in the field have got the easiest role and they, you know, they don't execute properly. And this is where we've got to discipline. All right, that's just another subject altogether. But when you're confident and we start talking about pricing tomorrow, your pricing breakdown is based on your business's productivity levels. All right, what you can do as a team, because everybody does it the same. Everybody is like a football team, okay, the All Blacks, okay? When they lose, they still lose following the process. They don't take risks, okay? So it's the same with business, okay? You align it, we all follow it. If there is a chink in the process, we revisit that process and go, how can we improve that? Okay, I got a bit off track then, passion.
Eddie, let's harness that passion a little bit more, brother, because passion's great. But Barry, as you well know, we have a saying in te ao Māori, mā te he ka mōhio, mā te mōhio ka mārama, mā te mārama ka matau, mā te matau ka ora. In essence, it kind of talks to, well, it talks to, you know, some of our greatest learnings come from some of the things we may not have got right, you know, so you make a mistake here and actually that's the greatest learning that you can have. So I wondered if you wanted to share any sort of instances, Bray, that you know of where, you know, we haven't got things quite right, and how we deal with that.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's there's some passion coming out here. I've been very fortunate that a lot of the tenders that I've executed, I've been involved with the tender stage. So it's funny because I can be submitting a tender, I could be climbing a pole the next day, I could be digging a hole the next day, I could be testing a piece of network. So for me, I've got a really thorough understanding of every aspect of a project and executing that. But I've got things wrong as well, okay? And unfortunately, when you're executing a contract, and generally you're going to get the biggest pain or grief is going to be during the mobilisation phase. And what we've also found that with this situation, we were dealing directly with a state government. I won't mention which government it was, but they put in a middle person, a project management organisation in between. So it actually made the lines of communication, I guess, fractured, where we had to go through a middleman. And what we didn't do is in our communication matrix was I guess we assumed that we would be talking directly to the government organisation. What was happening is things were going around about in circles. But once we learned that we had to communicate through this consulting organisation, they were actually impeding the progress of the mobilisation for this project, and more so it was with dealing with stakeholders. So I guess for the learning out of that was huge. Sorry, I'm just thinking back, because there was a number of occasions where we were even at points of terminating for rights of convenience, because the spec had changed so many times, but by the time it had come to us without a proper communication flow, such as Aconex, which is what we adopted at the time, there was misconstrued. So by the time we were submitting our designs, they kept going round in circles and delaying the design approval for us. And what that meant is that the flow-on effect is what that achieved for executing the work, executing contracts to our service partners, because we had a detailed program, but the program was being held up by design. All right. And the breakdown of the communication between the government organisation and the intermediary in between. So it's very important that we understand who's who in that zoo, and making sure that we have robust communication platforms and getting the questions answered. For us, that meant that the project got delayed, start date got delayed by 4 months before we could actually take ownership of the first site, of 7 sites. And it delayed the whole project by nearly a year, right? And we wore quite a significant overhead cost, circa $2.5 million just for that oversight. Another important thing with these is your risk register. Okay, and again, we'll talk about more of this tomorrow, but really understanding the risks that are involved in the project. And don't base it on the last project, because each project is different conditions, different environment, different weather conditions, different geotechnical conditions that you've got to factor for. All right. And then also, what's the likelihood of a high risk accident occurring, and worst case, a fatality, and how that affects the business, and how it affects the project, and how it affects your reputation. So all those things you've got to consider. You've got to understand how you can mitigate it for your normal business as usual processes. But if there's something left the field in there, you need to really highlight that back to the client. Now, they always ask a question: what do you see are the risks, abnormal risks for this business? This is your opportunity to tell them, these are the 6 risks that we see could delay the projects, whether it's health and safety, whether it's a stakeholder problem, whether it's a say civil excess rock, for example. We calculated so much percentage of rock, now it's a lot higher. So all those things you need to table, but then you don't actually table what you think the dollar value is. Okay, so it's quite important that you understand your cost, but what is also the risk cost that you may encounter throughout that project, and you being able to quantify that when it comes to I guess reducing your price, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. I'm going to share my screen again just to get through the presentation. I can share screen 3. Okay, Examine the question. Okay, does the question have what it seems like? For example, please explain your risk management procedures, including what risks you feel are vital to overcome as part of this contract, as well as monitoring and mitigation approaches you would use. Please detail who will manage the risks and provide examples of where you have overcome, how you've overcome these similar risks. So as you can see in this one sentence is 1, 2, 3, 4 questions that they're asking within one paragraph. So you've got to think, okay, how am I going to answer this question? This is where that project management plan comes into place, where you're going to be sucking information out of that, all right, and providing charts and providing, matrices to support how you're going to do that. So that's quite a detailed question, and some people can get, held up on that. Again, it's about, having your plan in place, different mitigation processes, roles and responsibilities, okay, all these different factors, and that's where you draw your answers to these questions. The next question, could be as simple as describe how you manage risks. Okay, pretty much it's the same question as this one, all right? But now it's just down to five words. Okay, so you may still have to. Don't think that 5 words is going to, okay, well, I better beat them and give them 10 words. Okay, it could be 5,000 words. It could be supporting documentation, appendices 1 to 5. So please, show them examples of, show the paragraph from how you're going to undertake it. Give them examples of what you've done in the past and how it's been successful. So a lot of people can get held up or overlook, what they're really asking for. Another example is, provide, the org chart and the roles and responsibilities. I've seen answers like Eddie Te Paa is going to be the site foreman. Kawhata Williams is going to be the lead electrician. Show that diagrammatically, show what those roles and responsibilities are. Okay, again, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's about having that collateral in place. And this is important. What we're talking about today is the collateral. Now, building up your collateral doesn't happen overnight, as I've always said, but what it's going to do, if you put the effort in building that collateral up, you're going to spend 20% of your time on the non-pricing component. That gives you 80% of the time to focus on the real stuff, which is, I'm going to go back again, which is your pricing, your timeline, your work breakdown structure, your program, okay? And even, the covering letter, okay? That's where you want to focus your time. The roles and responsibilities of the people within the organization should be able to chew up the non-pricing component relatively quickly. So the experts, in your QS, your construction managers, the people that really experience the beef of what you're undertaking can focus on that, okay, and putting together that detailed work breakdown structure based on your employees' productivity, capability, your service partners' productivity and capability, timing and all that. That's how you're going to be able to really focus all your time on. So an example of, building your collateral is, having template tender folders. Okay, so you can track each tender right from the day you registered onto your register right through to hopefully a success. All right, and just because it was an unsuccessful, you've got the opportunity to revisit that and talk to the client and see where you went wrong, and then you'll go back to your to your collateral and update that. There's bid forms. Again, I spoke about it earlier about reviewing the opportunity against your checklist. Does it meet your criteria? Are you going full out of bid, no bid? Okay, do your commercial review. Get the right people doing the right parts of the documentation reviews. And lastly is your own library. Okay, your company details, insurances. People are holding off because they haven't got the insurance don't know where to find their insurances. So make it so it's easy for you to find all your documentation, insurance levels, licenses, policies, financial statements, which they'll ask for, project profiles, okay? Have those libraries, this will build up, okay? There's also a library filing structure, for example. So have that there in place and keep building up. Yeah, and keep building up your library, your CVs of your key staff, you know, keep updating them as you get new people in, create the CV for them based on, you know, what you've gone through with your recruitment process. Use everything, keep the documentation consistent, all right? Keep everything looking the same. So when they look at it, they can look at it and go boom, 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 and see what they're looking for quite easily. Yeah, look, so this is, you know, a really high level of this. And as you're getting more confident with these different template folders, your bid forms and your library, okay, it'll get a lot easier. And the right people can then focus on that 20%, getting the non-pricing criteria completed. So the experts on the do can focus at 80% on getting that over the line. I didn't finish this one, but as a wrap up, okay, I talk about checklists, creating your own templates, and also the templates specific to that client. When you start tendering for panels, okay, that's just the first part of it. You know, ask these questions about, well, give us an example of, should an opportunity come out on the panel, give us an example of how it's going to be distributed, so you can then build up your templates for submitting, you know, real quotes for as part of the panel. Keep your language consistent, okay? So we want, the information can come from 5 different people within the organization. We want one person with the right language to be keeping it consistent so it reads the same, okay? Again, building up your library with your language consistencies. Also, with your documentation in your submission, make it easy for them to find. Okay, so you're answering all the questions in the schedules, you know, put your paragraph in, however big, however short or long it is, but any appendices that go with it, detail it, refer to Appendix 1, Project Management Plan, paragraph or Chapter 5, particular, make it specific for them. Even better, suck out some of the information and pull that out as an appendices. So, you know, refer Appendix 2, Communications Matrix. Again, it's just about making it easy for them. Generally, they're going to ask for example SSSPs, you know, and you know you can't fit it on that non-pricing document. So you just reference it there, maybe a paragraph, refer to Appendix 5, SSSP project number. You might submit a couple. And I guess just to close off, it is about you, and it is about your business. It is your opportunity to show who you are. We are very good at it, and we're very good at talking about it. What we've got to do now is listen to ourselves talking and try and put it in writing. Now, there are people out there that can help us with that, and you know, I have worked with a few organisations in my time here with Amotai to help them get their libraries in place and give them a bit of guidance. And if there is, you know, we will always highlight opportunities for you and you know, ask you if you do need some support in any way. We'll try and look for that for you as well. I will just hand it back to Glenn to see if there's any more questions.
No, so yeah, awesome timing, bro. So we've got 5 minutes, whānau. So if anybody has any questions that they want to be able to ask Eddie, here's a really appropriate time to be able to do it. And just so I'm just going to give you that time to think about it. Either again, raise your hand or post something in the chat box. And just as we do that, so I just want to remind everybody that we're holding another session tomorrow. Eddie, do you want to cover off on the content of that session?
Right.
Just high level.
Yeah, just high level. So look, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the good stuff. Okay, bid administration. Okay, the roles and responsibilities of people that are actually involved in the tender process, which is more or less just a continuation of these first three topics we spoke about today. But more importantly, we want to really talk about the cost estimation. A lot of people that I have been, a lot of business I've been talking with always talk about the sale price. I don't give a shit about the sale price, to be honest. I want to know what it costs. Okay, when I go to the shop to buy me a bag of lollies when I was a child, I knew what I was buying, I knew what it cost him. Okay, and then I would go down to my school and I would sell it so I would make a profit. Okay, it's no different. Okay, cost is vital, right? Once you understand what your cost is, you don't change that. Okay, that's not going to, you don't trim your cost so you can get the job. Okay, you got to walk away. All right, and then secondly, lastly, we'll talk about the proposal and how we just do the finishing touches based on all the information that you provided. And believe it or not, sometimes that cover letter is really going to be the be all and end all of it, and it's supported by the 2,000 pages of documentation you may have provided, or 20 pages. So that's what we'll be talking about tomorrow.
I've got a question coming from Josh and Kendall.
Josh.
Well, tēnā koe Glenn, o tēnā kōrua, iri hoki, tēnā tātou katoa. E paku mihi kia kōrua, rawe tēnei hui hui, I tēnei ata. E noho ana au kei Otaki, tataki te whanganui a Tara, hei māngai mō te more concrete doctors, tā mātou kamupeni. My pātai is relating to tier 1 contractors, and often we are tendering to them these on big contracts where say they have a social procurement, I wouldn't say obligation, but it's a part of their tender requisites, and then they'll come to us, ask for this, this and this, but then I've heard it come around before where they might win the job or something, and then we won't move forward further with the work. They might keep it for themselves if they can do it cheaper. It's all right in say a PPP job where maybe the money isn't an issue, but these bigger contractors passing down the work to the smaller contractors, we're struggling with, I suppose, knowing that there are these small Māori companies out here that can deliver these sorts of things, and it's a risk for these bigger tier 1 contractors to possibly use us, or they've got their big contractors that they use anyway, and they're going to go, oh, we'll just use this guy, we've used him for the last 20 years. How do we get buy-in? Because I see that there's good buy-in from, say, these governments, these councils and stuff. There's a lot of buy-in and keen Māori contractors, and there might be a bit of a battle between with these tier 1 contractors that have sort of a bit of old boys networks where they've gone, oh, we use these contractors for years, we've had no issues. Why would I want to risk my reputation on a company like this? Sort of any tips for that?
Yeah, so that's been around for a while with what you're stating, and believe it or not, a lot of these tier 1 organisations are actually coming to the party, and they are working with us to look regionally and to engage with local Māori businesses within those regions. So the key for us is really instilling supply diversity as business as usual, and that has been the hard journey. But we're realising now that, and I don't want to name some of these organisations, but they are actually doing a really good job with that. So for us, it's really now about us connecting you with them a lot earlier and engaging with them. Where we are finding it difficult is, unfortunately, the government organisations. If anything, it's at central government level, yes, yeah, we'll fly the flag, but out in Whoop Whoop somewhere where, it's just a smaller contract, they'll still bring in a large tier 1 organisation, say from Auckland, when they've got, the capability to undertake that. So again, this is one of those barriers that we've got to break down, and we've got our RMs, our capability managers that work with these buyers to really keep them honest. And then I've been in meetings with organisations where I'm telling you, you're not doing enough. I'm giving you all these suppliers, and why aren't you engaging with them? Why are you wasting my time and their time and not even engaging with them? So we are breaking down those barriers with those organisations, And again, it's about making sure we do find the organisations that have the capability to work with them. But also, you know, they want to help you as well, these tier one organisations. And again, it is about relationships, but it is coming down from the top and it's festering out throughout the regions. And I hope that, you know, we'll see the, I guess, the rewards, you know, in the not too far future.
Tēnā koe, Eddie. Amihi.
And I think Nathan would have been had a lot of experience with that during his earlier days, you know, for his first introductions.
Can I just add there, Eddie? Kia ora, Josh. Bro, amazing question. And I think, you know, I was dealing with that over the last 2 years around who do you talk to? How come all these tier one companies ain't using us? This is when I had a carpentry business. And you are right, unfortunately, I think if you break it down, it's almost, it starts at relationship building, but we got to understand that we're trying to educate tier one companies around how social procurement actually works within contracts, bro. So as an example, my company set up in Gizzy. I'm born and bred Tarawhiti, and about 90% of my subcontractors, because I deal directly to KO, are Māori. But that's only because I get that, you know what I mean? And I'm more interested in enabling more of our Māori businesses, just like yours, bro, to have the opportunity to deal directly to tier one. Now, I've been in many huis, and I remember I organised one with Kahurangi around, we had 5 tier one companies there at this hui, and it was just educating them that there's all these Māori and Pacifica businesses out there that can deliver just like these other companies that they're always using. And I totally get you, bro, and it's a shame that they are using the same old subbies, even if they're Filipinos or Chinese, that's all they've known. But I think if you really look deeply into it, they are a business and they are there to make money, but it is up to us to create their change for them and educate them that, hey, Māori and Pacifica businesses are just as competent as they are, or even better, but it's for us to go and show them. I just don't want to jump over the place, and I know we cut the time, but I just want to go back to Eddie's thing around, it's made some things, failure, learnings. Geez, I think I have more failures than winnings, bro. So if you fail, that's fine. Try and get feedback if you're tendering to government. So for example, if you miss out on a tender, get feedback on why you missed out. You can ask for that. Influencers, if you definitely know anyone, and I'm sure Ariana and Eddie and them can plug you in, if you can find the right person in that tier one company that influences that in terms of the decision on the contract, whether it's concreting, that will definitely help. Risk, yes, there's risk everywhere. Unfortunately, it's up to us as business owners to minimize that. And just touching on what Eddie said, having these templates in a library in place for your business just allows you to systematically put processes in place to minimize that the risk actually happening in your business, because we don't want to see anyone fail. But if we can implement processes inside your organization, inside your business, then you're minimizing your company from failing. But yeah, I could go on and on, but thank you. Kia ora, Kiss.
Tēnā tātou. Appreciate whānau that we've kind of come to the end of today's session. I want to acknowledge your individual and collective presence here today. This is about Amotai being able to respond to the needs of our businesses. And so I'm hoping you've taken some pearls of wisdom away from today's presentation and the knowledge that Eddie's been able to share with us. So to each and every one of you, thank you for being here. It's our honor and privilege to be able to host this session this morning. I also want to thank those who have who have asked questions. Nathan, for your contribution, Josh, for your contribution in terms of, and everybody else who's had the opportunity to ask questions as well. Otherwise, we'd just be standing here talking to ourselves, and that's not much fun. So really want to acknowledge, for those of you who are coming tomorrow, you've heard from Eddie in terms of what our 3 sort of topics are that we're going to cover, covering bid administration, cost estimation and price in the proposal. Have a think about those things overnight, some of the questions that you might want to ask throughout the presentation, because that's where the real richness of this conversation happens, right? It's not about us just standing here and presenting to you. It's about the richness of the kōrero that takes place. So acknowledging each and every one of you. And then finally, as we all know, the kumara never speaks about its own sweetness. But on this occasion, whānau, with a whole lot of humility, noho au e te iti, I just want to acknowledge on your behalf, Eddie, for his presentation this morning. No reire, Eddie, mihi kawana ki a koe e hoa mo o pukinga o whakaro. Me o whiako hoki e hoa atu tēnei o nā koha ki te whānau e whakarungu ana. So Eddie, just acknowledging you, bro, and your experience, your passion and your commitment, what you do every day to support our businesses, and sharing that as somewhat of a koha for our whānau this morning. Again, whānau, log in tomorrow. We're going to crack at it again. It's been another awesome session tomorrow. We started with karakia, so I'm going to close us all with karakia. I roti te whakaro nui ki tō tātou kaihanga. Mā te atua tātou e manaki, I roti tēnei wā o te korowha, kia noho haumaru koutou. So just acknowledging, difficult time for all of us, especially all of us in Auckland who can't even get to a KFC. Level 3, here we come, because that just means lockdown with the ability to go and get takeaways. But anyway, just want to acknowledge, taking, lightheartedness, but understanding that, the impacts of lockdown is very serious for all of us across the whole of the motu, regardless of what lockdown or level that we're currently sitting at. So just a thought to all of those who are struggling as well. Started with karakia, let's close with karakia. I roti te whakaro, he nui te mihi atu ki a koutou rā, kua tai atu nei ki te whakanui tēnei kaupapa kei wangine a tātou ara, ko te oranga o te iwi, te oranga o te moana nui a kiwa. No reira e, rauranga te iruma tēnā koutou, kinoi tātou. Ka pā ki tua, ka pā ki waho, ka pā ki te whare, ka pā ki te rua, ka pā ki te pau e tūnei. Kia mā te āriki, kia mā te tauira, nā hau e rua tau e tāni, te waiore e, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Nā rā te mihi atu ki a koutou e te whānau. Tēnā koutou.